Florida's a very unique place. It's a unique and special place, and it was unique and special 141 years ago when my family decided to move here, and it was a unique and special place whenever you and your family decided to move here. But if we don't do a better job at taking care of the great state of Florida, that specialness, that uniqueness that caused all of us to come here will be gone. So the real overarching goal of this book series is not just to teach Florida history. It's to instill in the next generation of Floridians a love and passion and knowledge about Florida that will serve our state as they grow up to be our next mayors and our next governors and our next state legislators. We're not teaching kids something that is far off in Never Never Land. This is not Harry Potter, it's not mystical, it's not fantasy land. This is real stuff. The place names, the rivers, the lakes, the cities, the characters, they're all real. In fact, this is entirely a true story. Unfortunately, it's a true story because it's the darkest environmental episode in the history of this country, probably the history of the world, where man had the worst environmental impact ever. And that's a pretty important story to tell in today's world as well.
The Last Egret takes the kids on a journey through Florida history. So last year we implemented the book. We had the author come to our school actually and speak to the children. And we did a series of activities. So we explored both Florida history. We explored writing. We wrote about Florida history. We included some science. We included reading. So it's kind of a whole scope of what we teach in fourth grade.
The Last Egret is a perfect opportunity for us to teach the story of Ivy and Frank Stranahan and the beginning of Fort Lauderdale. It is the story of a child growing up in South Florida. And as we work with the 3rd and 4th graders and even 5th graders in Broward County, we can give them a story of someone their own age as they grew up here in pioneer times. And we like to bring them here and take them back into time and be pioneers. So it's a beautiful relationship between the book and the house and a great way for us to teach the story.
We do programming at Bonnet House for the school kids, and basically what we do is we teach them about the ecosystems here in Florida and what they can do to help preserve the ecosystems in Florida, along with the birds. Bonnet House is a 35-acre estate, and we have 5 different ecosystems. We are the last of the untarnished barrier island between Gumbo Limbo and John Lloyd Park.
The Museum of Discovery and Science has been a big part of the school system for close to 40 years. And we do a lot of environmental education. So the Last Egret books have to do with the Everglades. We specialize in Everglades education. And we have a lot of live animals. We have some threatened species and endangered species. And the majority of the animals we have in our museum are native animals. We also have some exotic species that are threatening some of our native species in there. We can teach about the flora and the fauna in South Florida in general. And so it fits right into the books because the kids can come to the museum and they can see some of the animals that they read about in the books live. And we also work with our animals so they can touch them and get an up-close and personal experience with them. We have also a lot of exhibits that have to do with the Florida water story and the Everglades and the water and how that affects the people that live in South Florida. So we can also do a lot with the kids that come and teach them about how important the Everglades and the water in the Everglades is to our community.
You do realize that Charlie and Lily were my relatives in real life. These are true stories. These are not made up. In real life, Lily was my great-grandmother. You know who your great-grandmother is, right? Your grandmother's mother? Well, in real life, Lily was my great-grandmother, and Charlie was her older brother, which made him my great-granduncle, which sounds very confusing. But that's how I am related to the characters in the book. And they moved here 141 years ago this year, in the year 1872.
The curriculum itself was just wonderful. The journals, they correlated with the book as well as our standards in our regular social studies curriculum. So even though we weren't using an actual textbook, they were learning so much.
And when you grow up, you'll read a lot of political reasons in textbooks why the longest war in American history ended. But I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons it ended: the friendship of 2 8-year-old boys, kids younger than you, from right here in South Florida, that forged a friendship that brought 2 warring peoples together and changed American history forever.
The value of the children coming here on a field trip is that They can sit in that classroom and they can read that book, but there are so many things that they just don't connect with. When you bring them to like the Stranahan house, they can actually walk through the house, see the way that Frank and Ivy Stranahan lived, and the things that they used back in those days. It just connects with them, and they really get more out of it.
Did everyone learn something here today? Did everyone have a good time? Thank you for reading my books. Keep reading, no matter whose books you're reading.